Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hi, and welcome to Small Steps to Wellness with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we are discussing how we can achieve wellness in our lives one small step at a time. Today, I am joined by fellow Norwegian, Aina Framnes, and we are going to talk about endometriosis, childlessness, and finding your peace with the hand you've been dealt. But first, let me introduce you to Aina. She lives with her husband in Norway, works at a Christian congregation with children between the ages of 3 and 13. She offers pastoral support and also delivers a variety of after-school activities. Outside work, she has a special interest in functional medicine and is currently studying naturopathy. Thank you so much, Aina, for joining me today. I'm really excited to hear your story. But before we start, I really need to stress to anyone listening that this show does not intend to give any medical advice. We're just having a conversation, giving Aina space to share her story and her personal experiences. And I think this is really, really important for me to highlight. So if at any point during this conversation, you feel like anything resonates or if anything feels familiar, always see your GP. I think I can't stress this enough. But anyway, hello, Aina. Thank you so much for coming on today. Could you just maybe start off by sharing a little bit about your work, your life? What does your normal day look like?
Yeah, and thank you so much to you, Mari, for asking me to come. I'm really excited about this because I think it's really important to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, you asked me my typical day or yeah. So my typical day is, as you said, I work with children in a Christian congregation. So my day starts not in the church, but at home. So with coffee and water and coffee, a big cup of coffee in the sofa and just relaxing before I go to work. So when I go to work, I go to the office and people don't think about this because I get a lot of questions. So what do you do when you work in church? Do you only work on Sundays? No, I don't only work on Sundays. I work every day. So when I go to work and I sit in the office, I am planning the week. What do I do with the kids? I plan everything maybe 3 months. How do you say that? So
In advance.
3 months ahead.
Yeah,
or in advance. So I'm planning trips or what we're going to do in the evenings with the children, what we're going to have for dinner that day with the children. Yeah, so it's more like I'm 40% in the office and 60% with the kids because I work 100% at work.
That sounds like an amazing mix. So it's some maybe like more computer work and some practical work. And so I find this interesting because on so many levels. Because I'm not sure I've heard, and that might just be my ignorance. I've heard of so many maybe people working in a Christian church also being totally into functional medicine and everything. And we discussed whether or not to include that information, but I think it's interesting, because I certainly am clearly very ignorant when it comes to that. But what I wanted to talk to you about is, you work with children, but before we decided to have this interview, you said to me, I've never wanted to have children.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Well, the thing is that when I was a kid, I used to play with Barbie dolls, or like or baby dolls, But the thing is that I felt like well, I never used to call myself a mom when I was playing with these dolls. I was the one taking care of them. And so when I was playing with Barbie and Ken, they got married, but they never had children. And I don't know where that comes from. That's just how I was. And then when I was about, I think I was about 14, 15 or something like that. And my best friend at high school, she lost her two brothers, one to cancer and one because of drug abuse. And her older sister, she lost, not lost, but she had to give away or give up her son because of drug abuse. And so the thing was that at that time, I remember that I was sitting at the dinner table and I told my parents that I am never going to have kids. And they were not shocked, but they were still, why do you say that? And I said, well, because no matter how good of a parent you can be the best mom in the world. You can follow all the rules. You can be, the book smart mom, you can do everything right, but still something can happen to your child. Something, it could be illness, it could be drugs, it could be you can be run over by a car. I mean, there can be anything. And I said, well, I myself, I have enough with me. I mean, like, I am, how do you say that? I am I had too much to think about when it comes to me. So I didn't want to have one more person to take care of. Yeah.
And literally be responsible for their lives. I mean, it's a good point. One of my children says the same. She says, I don't want to. So that's okay. We're all different. But it's interesting that you so enjoy working with children. Even though, but so the interesting thing about this topic, and I can imagine that if you're listening, this might be quite sensitive for some people. If you feel triggered by anything, please, as I said, talk to somebody. Your GP would be the first point of call, I would say. But then when you grew up, so I don't know if you'd already decided by then and made that conscious decision, but you've had struggled with endometriosis. Can you share a little bit about so you've kind of, I suppose maybe it was more clear from the age of 14, 15 you didn't want to have children, but then before that, I don't know if it was a subconscious thing, who knows, right? But you this is the big question. But tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up with that, because that's a disease that is well, tell me a little bit about it first, and I'll give you my 2 pennies worth of thoughts after.
Yeah, so the thing is that I was about 11 when I first had my period, so that was really early, and also that caused a lot of problems for me, because it was a lot of pain and we didn't know why, and I used to vomit a lot because of the pain, and sometimes I would that came later, but when I was in high school, sometimes I could faint because I lost a lot of blood, and it was really painful, but we still didn't know why. I was only told that, oh, it's just PMS, so it's fine, no problems. Yeah, just yeah. But my parents were still like, well, it's a bit weird to have that serious PMS, like you can't do anything when you have your period, or just you can't do anything the week before either. So
and that doesn't leave a lot of time in the month, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't leave enough time to be a teenager. You know, to hang out with your friends and to do stuff, because I couldn't do anything because it was so bad. But when I was about 13, my doctor said that, well, you can just start a pill, so just start using the pill. And so I did that, and then I that didn't work, and then I tried another one, and that didn't work. Well, it did work, but the thing is that it made me worse hormonal. You know, like I was more angry, I was more sad, I could crush things, I could, you know, like I could just take a glass and throw it in the floor, and I was angry, and I was crying a lot, and you know the whole
Yep.
the whole drill.
Yep.
So
I think a lot of people would recognize this.
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't know why. We were just, okay, well, then we try another one. And then we tried another one. And then when I was about, maybe I was 18, I think, because remember this, that I didn't start the pill, I mean, because of the contraceptive issue. It was because I was trying to get better, or because yeah. But then we found out that I had endometriosis, and then adenomyosis, and PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Yeah,
exactly.
So when we find that out, they still didn't do anything for me other than, oh, well, we'll just try something else then. So here you go, try this or that. And nobody told me that I might get better when if I would change something in the way I ate.
Yeah.
Or it was nothing. It was just a lot of synthetic stuff, or
yeah. And that's not to say that doesn't work for
no,
some people.
No,
that's
not
really
at
important.
all.
Again, I just to stress that. But I think it's
this is my personal
exactly. But I also wonder if it might be an easy solution, and that's something that, I mean, it's not like I haven't heard this before. I think we've all been given the pill for bad skin at one point in our lives, and you kind of just trust the opinion that's given, and you go along with it. So what happened then after you'd been, because surely it gets to a point, right, where you're just thinking, okay, enough already. What point did that happen then?
Well, that actually happened when I was 27.
Okay, so quite late on.
Like that. Yeah, because well, I was told by my gynecologist that I could she said, well, what if you want, now, how do you say that? Do you want to remove your uterus?
Uterus, okay. Wow.
And I said, well, because remember that I've been in so much pain, and this caused a lot of trouble for me. So I think maybe I was about 24 at that time when she asked me that the first time. And I said, well, yes, I want to do that. And then she said, well, are you sure? You're so young. But then I was like, why are you asking me this if you're going to tell me that? What, are you sure? Maybe you're too young. And then and because then I have to rewind a bit, because when I was 19, because I have had so many cysts um and stuff. Well, it was cysts and it was scars on the ovaries, and yeah, so I was told that I might not be able to have children.
What did that
uh,
message do to you? Because you've
I
said you've never wanted to have children, and that was your
yeah,
choice, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden that choice is removed from you.
yeah.
Does that do
So the
something
thing
to?
is, it does, because the thing is that when I said that to my parents, that I don't want to have kids, I don't want to be a mom, um I believe that that also came from the it came from that I was scared, maybe, to do well. I was scared of not being good enough, not being a good enough mom, not being a good enough everything. But when I was told that I might not be able to have children when I was 19, I number one, I was 19, I was really young. So my first thought was, okay, well then that side of the picture, I don't need to have those conversation anymore, that I'm not gonna have kids, because now I can't have kids. So yeah, and I was 19 and carefree, and I was like, okay, well, but I do. So when she told me that, I um I don't remember anything about my thoughts or anything at that point, but I do remember that later I was more going into the sorrows, because I could see, well, when my friends were talking about getting children, or talking about that like, okay, so when I'm 24 or when I'm 25, I want to have kids and I want to do that, and I blah 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 blah. And I couldn't be a part of that conversation, because that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
So that made me really sad. And then when my friends also starting having the first, how do you say it, the first baby boom,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
having children, and everyone was planning and having baby showers and all that. I was still not a part of it, and they were unsure if they're going to ask me to the baby shower, because maybe that may be sad, and all of that. So then that also made me feel left out. And so there's a lot of things with this, um but also at the same time, I was still finding peace in, okay, so I didn't really want to have children, and that was okay. And now I can't have children, so, well, I have to find a way to find peace within that.
Yeah.
But then, uh, how do
How
you
do you
say
find
that?
peace with this? How do you find peace with it? Is that a tricky question, maybe?
Not really. Well, how do you say? Well, perhaps it's a difficult question, because I I didn't really find the 100% peace with it. Well, not 100%, maybe 80, 90% peace with it until I met my husband.
That's
Because
interesting. And we've had this conversation, because I said to you, and this is me being naive again, how do you go about, and I think I asked my husband this as well, and I can't remember what he said, how do you go about starting to go out with someone, dating someone, and how does
yeah,
that conversation happen? And you can tell me about it, maybe.
yeah, well, well, we okay, so I can tell you about my first date, my first real date with my husband, because we both had been in not well, we both had been in bad relationships before. So our date was, it started off well. First, I have to tell you that, because long story short, we started talking together. We were co-workers, and so we knew each other. So then when we had a first date, we all already knew each other a bit. So we were talking it together about the whole, well, I've been in bad relationships and you have been in a bad relationship. So how do we do this? What do we do from now? We're both 26 years old. We had to, we had to find our way to cope with this. So then he said to me, okay, I have to make one thing clear. And if this is not okay with you, then I think we can just end all of this now. And he said, I do not want children. And then I felt like 100 kilos would just drop from my shoulders, because I was, wow, now I can say that, well, you're not gonna have children with me because I can't have kids.
Oh, match made in heaven.
Yeah, so then we both started laughing and we were like, okay, well then that's something that we don't have to talk about right now. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, so and I can just say that the reason why he didn't want kids was because he was from well, his upbringing in his family was not really that good, so he didn't want to, well, I can say that with his father being an alcoholic and having drug problems, and also the brother and the mom with psychological issues, and yeah, so he was he told me that he didn't want to bring his genes forward, you know, because he was afraid of that happening, and he was also afraid of being a bad parent because he didn't have, you know, the best
role models. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it was,
it worked out fine.
But the thing is that we both like children. We both love children. We are I'm an aunt and he's an uncle, and we still have them over here in their vacations sometimes, and I have a date with my 8-year-old niece just on this Monday, and so we still love children, but we just don't want to have them for ourselves. But it doesn't mean that we don't love children. It's just
Can I ask you something about that? Because I also want to, before we run out of time, I need to talk about this endometriosis, because that's really interesting. But how is it easier to say I can't have children as a woman rather than I don't want to have children as a woman? And I'm referring, I suppose, a little bit to an Instagram post you did a while back that got a lot of attention, because you can be a whole person as a woman without wanting children, but it's hard, isn't it, compared to, I guess, a man saying the same. So what has that been like for you?
Well, it's been really tough because people in general, I don't think, well, I know that people don't mean to be rude, but when people you don't really know, or people you haven't met in a long time, know that you're married, or that you live with someone or have a partner, then it's natural for people to ask, so when are you going to have children?
I know I've done that. I know that, and I've learned, because obviously we know people who struggle, or who can't have them, or choose not to, and all those things, and you learn from that experience. But I think it's so ingrained in us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is that, well, how do you respond to that without, well, number one, how do you respond to that without getting the other person to feel bad?
But is that your responsibility?
no, it's not. And that's what I found out, because well, to start with, when people ask me, so when are you gonna have kids, or just wait until you have kids, Aina, all those, then I said, well, I'm not gonna have kids, or, well, it's just gonna be me and Tom. I tried to say it in a nice way. But then people ask, oh, really? Why?
Mhm.
and that's also like, well, can't you just stop? When people say, well, it's just going to be us, that's a nice way to say, well, maybe we're not gonna, or maybe we can't, or, but then I have met so many people who say to me, like, that I'm an egoistic person
Oh,
for not
selfish.
wanting,
Wow.
yeah, for not having to want kids. And then in that, when they say that, well, then I find then I have a right to say, well, actually, I'm not selfish, because I can't have children.
I bet that shuts them up, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but then some people, if I do say that it's just going to be us two, then, oh, really? Why? Well, because kids are not for us, and, oh, really? Why? Well, I can't have children. Oh, but you can adopt. You can have children in foster care. Well, you can be a foster family, or
If
what
you
do you
haven't
say
thought
that?
about that yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
they try to help you. But of course, that made me feel like I'm not woman enough, or like I'm not a whole person, that I'm not good enough, or but I think this is what really makes me feel like it's important to talk about this, because I know it can still be do you say stigma? It can still be a stigma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
to talk about this, because people don't want to talk about it.
Because women are supposed to
Everything,
want to have children.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because that's how we're brought up, and in going into them, to the what you're talking about earlier with endometriosis, that as well. I mean, any women's issues, it feels like we are banging our heads against the wall a little bit when we are complaining about what's not going well. And I felt this a little bit. So I have 2 children, and after I had my first child, and I'm going to tell you this, that you're never going to feel like a good enough parent. Never. That's the curse of the parent, never feeling like you're good enough. But anyway, after I had my first child, I felt, and maybe that was inside me, but I felt like whenever I took her to the doctor, that they were kind of looking at me a little bit like, oh, hysterical mom. But then you realize like, no, actually, or there was an intolerance here, or there was an allergy actually, and because I kept going, they started taking it seriously. But I wonder whether, we as women, we're still not taken too seriously, or we're still expected to fulfill a role that is kind of quite narrow, I suppose. It's really, really important that you talk about this. I find it so good that you are so willing and open about everything. And I'm gonna share your Instagram handle in the end. I think Instagram automatically translates to English, so any of your Norwegian posts, they should be able to be read by the English-speaking audience. I think it's so important to if we feel okay about it, to open up ourselves and share what we've been going through, so that others can maybe take some wisdom and some learnings from it. And this is what I want this Small Steps to Wellness radio show to be about, to give people a platform to say, this is what happened to me. And so hopefully somebody will listen and go, oh, actually that made me feel really good, or actually I learned something from that, or do you know what, I am going to go and see my doctor, I am going to actually talk to my parents and explain why I don't want it done, you know. So I think it's so good that you're sharing this. I've no idea how long we've been talking for, but you had horrible issues with endometriosis, PCOS, everything, but you're functioning pretty well now, aren't you? What happened?
Yeah, the thing is that when I was about 20, I think I was about 27 or 28. Well, anyway, I just got really, really sick of being told that you should take those pills or these contraceptive. Do you call it shots? Yes, you do.
Yeah, you can even,
or other contraceptives with a lot of hormonal, well, that can cause hormonal issues. So that's what really made me think, because I thought that, well, how did women cope with this before all the contraceptives were on the market? Because on the market, people actually earn a lot of money on us using those, you know. Not that it doesn't mean that I'm sitting here and saying that don't use contraceptives, because for some people it works, but for me it didn't. So I'm just talking from my personal experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the thing is that so I told my gynecologist that I was really fed up with all of this. I have never known me. I never knew me. I did not know who Aina was, because I was always using some hormonal contraceptives, which made me feel different. That I was thinking more like, okay, so am I always this sad? Am I a sad person? Even though I was laughing a lot, I was still crying the next moment about something. So I was, who am I really? That was one thing. The other thing was that I started reading books about how can you control your body as a woman, your menstrual cycle, with food, with herbs, with in a natural way. So I've never been a book reader until I learned that there was a lot of books in this category.
Vested interest.
I swallowed the books whole, you know. I was like, oh wow, this is so exciting. And I really felt like I was getting more control over me, over Aina, over so I started I told my gynecologist that I didn't want to use anymore. I didn't want to go on any contraceptives. And then she started laughing at me. And then she said, well, that's your choice. So just figure it out yourself. I mean, she didn't even, like give me any advice, except there was one advice she told me. Okay, if you want to maybe feel better, then just stop eating gluten. Yeah. So I was like, okay, great. So then I just said bye-bye to her, and I found another one. So and she actually helped me. She saw my problems, and she said, okay, let's do this together. Let's find a way that fits you, and let's do this together. And so that's a really good, that's my advice to you who are listening, that if your gynecologist, if you feel like she or he doesn't listen to you, it's actually your right to find someone else. You're not married to this gynecologist. You can actually find another one. and so yeah, so what I did, I started eating, uh, how do you say that? I started eating through my cycles. So, okay, so what can I eat during this part of the cycle? What can I eat during this part of cycle? And that really helped me. So, using food as my medicine has actually helped me so much. And also drop, how do you say that? Not drop, but stop use. I stopped using soaps or deodorants or anything for my well-being, but also in my house that can cause hormonal issues.
Yeah.
Because I found out that this, well, that actually increased my PMS. And I just wanted to make that clear that PMS is well, just because it's how do you say that? You remember what I said? Just because PMS is,
oh yeah, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's really important to remember. That because what I found out was that when I cut all this stuff out, when I didn't even use, well, didn't use contraceptives anymore in that, well, I mean hormonal contraceptives.
Yeah.
And also when I started using food and herbs as my medicine, I got so much better. And after, I think it's about 3 years ago now, must be about 3, maybe 2, about 2 or 3 years ago, I went to the gynecologist, and she said, well, she couldn't find any cysts at that point.
Wow.
And I had been, yeah. So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's just, I mean, and do you eat gluten?
Yes, I eat gluten.
I mean, it is a common trigger for a lot of people, but but you should also be careful about cutting out big food groups like that. So that's but that's funny. So many things to take from that, and I can't believe I have to wrap up. I feel like we need another conversation about this.
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
Yeah, I loved it. And no, it's so important. And I've already picked the one top tip. If you feel like you're not being listened to, find somebody else. Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah, it's so important. The second thing that I got from you, oh, there's so many things, but you are a whole person, a whole woman, even if you can't and won't have children. And also sometimes just listening to your own gut and realizing, hang on, there must be something I can do about this. What did people used to do? You know, what can I do about this? And surely, just on that note, there must be a bit of power in knowing that you can actually make changes yourself. You're not a victim to the situation you're in. You can actually change something about it yourself. I think that's really important, because I think often we're just being told to sort of grin and bear it, and well, this is how it is, and tough. And actually you can do something to improve your own situation. I don't want to stop this at all. Go on, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, because about when you said that it's important to know, that it's important to know what you can do. But the thing is that what I really like to say is that, okay, so there's some truth to knowledge is power, but there's more truth in knowledge done right is power. So use the power right.
Yeah.
And I have never, I mean, of course, when you're in the middle of the aching and everything's bad, and those really bad days, of course you are blaming the gynecologists and the doctors and the hospitals and why didn't they, but maybe they just didn't know. Maybe they just don't know any better.
Yeah.
So it's not really anyone's fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not the gynecologist's fault. But maybe they just don't know any better.
Yeah.
And I actually found peace in that. That this is not something that I can, how do you say that? This is not something that I can blame anyone else. But still, there can be better ways or better outcomes, but you just have to use the knowledge right.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. If people want to find you, they can find you on Instagram, can't they? And I'll spell out your handle. So it's at, and then it's nature without the E at the end. So NATUR, and then it's STERK, and it means nature strong. So I'll repeat that. So it's NATURSTERK. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I've just seen my puppy is woken up, so it's time to take him out. I feel like I've missed out so many things, but this was so good. We've only scratched the surface of this, I feel. But thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so important that we open up as women and share that, because I think it's so easy to feel like we're alone in our suffering. Which sounds like we're all suffering, but if we are struggling with something, it's very easy to feel like I'm the only one that's got this issue. And then all of a sudden somebody shares their story and you go, oh, hang on, that sounds like me. And there is a bit of comfort in the knowledge that you're not the only one, isn't there?
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
You wanted to have me to and to let me speak about this, because it's really important to me that people can actually figure out that they're not alone.
Perfect. And maybe
we'll feel alone in this.
But this I can imagine, because nobody talks about this. And I can imagine also that maybe somebody will listen to this and go, maybe be able to find a solution sooner, so they don't have to go through all the suffering. That would be something, if one thing could come out of this. Listen, I'm gonna end it there. Thank you so much again for being on with me. Thank you, Aina. And it's very strange speaking a foreign language with somebody from your own country, but I think we did rather well. So pat on the back to us both. And yes, speak to you soon. Take care.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family's happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.